Welcome back to our tutorial in Unity and GitHub. In this tutorial, we'll be editing the Unity project with Visual Studio and then taking the finished product and committing it to our GitHub repository. Here you can see I have a very simple project in Unity that I've set up with a simple capsule and a plane. I have added a script to that capsule so that I can edit it in Visual Studio. And the first thing I want to make sure of is that I actually am able to open this script in Visual Studio, not in some other editor. I need to go to the Edit menu, click on Preferences, and then select External Tools, and then under External Script Editor, select Visual Studio 2017. In this case, I have the Enterprise version instead of MonoDevelop or Visual Studio 2015 or whatever other editor you might have available to you. Then, if I just double-click on the script itself, it will automatically open in Visual Studio. Visual Studio will then create a Visual Studio solution for me, creating the solution files and other elements that it needs in order to actually run the code. So if you're familiar with Visual Studio, at this point, the solution should look similar to what you are used to. Over here on the right-hand side, we have the assets and some of the other folders. You can see here, if we open up the Unity project itself, the Unity folder itself, we can see all of the solution files that Visual Studio has created in order to run this C# project. Eventually, at some point, we will probably want to reorganize our files and folder structure over here under the Assets folder. Right now, we just have the one script, so I'm just leaving it there in the Assets folder, but eventually you'll probably have a lot more folders to organize your scripts and other assets. So here's our simple script. It doesn't do anything right now. We just want to add a little bit of code to it in order for our capsule character to do something so that we can see that the code has been updated in the GitHub repository. So all we want to do is just move the character along the Z-axis so it moves quote unquote forward, because the Z-axis is always going to be forward in Unity. So we simply want to respond to the up arrow. Okay, we're going to keep this really simple. This is not production level code, but we need to have something in here to illustrate our point. If our input key is the up arrow, then we want to move the object. If you've used previous versions of Unity before, you were used to using the rigid body property of the game object. That has now been deprecated. So we have to actually use get component from the game object. The game object here is going to be the capsule, but we get its rigid body, which is a method. Then we take its transform and we want to translate, not transform, but translate to 0, 0, and then some small value. We don't have a very big plane, so we don't want it to fall off the plane immediately. We save that, and then we can go back to Unity and just test it out to make sure that it is still working. Here we pull up our capsule, we play the game, and if I press the up arrow, oh look, there it goes. And whoops, it fell off the plane. But our code works, everything's great. So let's go ahead and commit these changes to the repository. So here we see our uncommitted changes. We can look down at the unstaged files and we can see what GitHub believes has changed. We can see that a capsule character was added, a red material was added, a white material was added, and some project settings were changed. So these different types of files that we see here are the code files, and then these meta files are files created by Unity to help track the versions of the associated files so that Unity can keep track of which version is the most up-to-date version, which is the newest version of that file. So here we have our red material, we had our white material, but I didn't save the scene. So now I need to go back and actually save the scene because I noticed from those unstaged files that I was missing this scene. Now if I go back, you can see that SourceTree has updated the list of unstaged files, and now my main Unity scene is listed there along with some other updated files. So if we take a closer look at this scene file, you notice that even though it's a text file, we really don't understand what is being presented to us on the right-hand side. In Unity, there are certain files like the scene file and prefab files that you can't manually merge. So those files, only one person can edit them at a time, and we're going to have to synchronize our editing of those files outside of the Git merge process. So now that I've visually inspected my unstaged files and they match up with what I believe I changed in the project, now I can go ahead and stage all of these files. And again, we visually inspect to make sure that what we think was supposed to be happening, like certain files were being added, certain files were being changed, actually matches with what GitHub and SourceTree are reporting. Then we go ahead and hit commit. Then we add a message. And basically, I just want to summarize what I did here. So I added the main character and a ground plane to the main scene. I created the main scene because it didn't exist before. And then I added a material to the main character and to the ground plane. So relatively simple and straightforward, but I've in detail listed everything that I did so that I can jump back to this point in time if I need to. Notice that push changes to origin master has already been set because that's what I used before. And now my commit has been processed. And I can see that the master branch and the origin master branch are both updated to that most recent commit now. And that's it.